Hi, welcome to Danny After Dark. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Tonight will be part 2 in my 2-part series on Jesse Pomeroy. So if you missed part 1, go back and check it out so you're all caught up on the case. Now, let's continue on Jesse Pomeroy Part 2. Go ahead and dive on in. Jesse was now locked in a cell in the police station house and questioned. The questioning was tough and intimidating, but Jesse continued to claim he was innocent. After several hours of interviewing, the police, they gave up and left Jesse alone in the dark cell while they contacted his mother. Well, the police woke Jesse up after midnight to try again to force a confession. The officers this time threatened him with a 100-year jail term unless he admitted to his crimes. At that point, Jesse, he broke down and confessed to the police. He was the one responsible for those crimes. The next day, Jesse was taken to the main Boston jail, where each of his victims confirmed he was the boy that attacked and molested them. Jesse's mother, however, she took to the media to say they were a good family. The community, they were pissed at Jesse. The courts, however, decided to show leniency for Jesse and not punish him too harshly because he was still so young. So Jesse served only a year and a half and was then paroled. 6 weeks after Jesse was paroled, he struck again. This time, 10-year-old Katie Curran. She had entered Mrs. Pomeroy's store because she needed a notebook. Jesse was there. With no one watching, Jesse asked Katie to go downstairs to look for more notebooks. Reaching the bottom step in the cellar, she realized she had been tricked. However, it was too late. Katie was now missing. When Katie's mom heard that she went to Mrs. Pomeroy's store for a notebook, she feared the worst. She knew of Jesse's past. The police ended up telling her Jesse was not thought of to be the attacker because, quote, he only hurt little boys, never attacked a girl, end quote. However, Katie's mom was so persistent, so the police did visit Mrs. Pomeroy's store. Mrs. Pomeroy, she didn't know anything about the body in the basement, but she was aware of the neighborhood gossiping about her son, Jesse. She was angry that they thought of her son the way he did and that he was being accused again. So she agreed to let the police search the store, but they found nothing. Someone in the meantime had gone to the police and said they thought they saw Katie get into the car of a guy. So the police viewed the case now as a runaway, and they simply moved on. Jesse next approached 5-year-old Harry and asked him for help with directions. Jesse offered the boy 5 cents to take him to the street that he was looking to go. They walked hand in hand down the street. Jesse clutched a broom handle in his free hand. When Jesse and Harry reached the destination, Harry had asked for the nickel. Instead, Jesse pulled the boy into a doorway and ordered him to keep his mouth shut. As the two boys rounded a corner, Jesse came face to face with an acquaintance that knew of his past reputation from his old neighborhood. The neighbor yelled at Jesse, and as the two teens started to argue, Harry was able to yank his hand from Jesse's, and he fled down the street. April 1874, the Millen family moved to Dorchester Street. The youngest child in the family was 4-year-old Horace. Along the way to the bakery, Horace encountered Jesse. The two set off to the bakery together. Horace bought a small cake, and he shared it with Jesse. After, Jesse suggested a trip to the nearby harbor. He decided as soon as he saw him, he was going to torture and kill Horace. They went to an area that was away from the open water and more deserted. And he said, quote, let's rest for a minute, end quote. That's what he told Horace. When Horace sat down, Jesse took out a pocket knife and grabbed Horace and slashed his throat. There was a great deal of blood, but Horace somehow was still alive. So then Jesse repeatedly stabbed Horace. However, Horace fought back. His hands and lower arms showed signs of defensive wounds, suggesting that he was alive during much of this assault. Eventually, Jesse managed to slice through Horace's windpipe and that killed him. He continued to stab at the body, however, especially in the genital area. Jesse punched Horace's right eye through the eyelid, and the coroner would eventually count no less than 18 wounds to the boy's chest. Jesse had also attempted to castrate Horace, and he mutilated his scrotum. The police instantly suspected Jesse Pomeroy. They picked him up and brought him to the police station to be questioned. He had no alibi for the time of the suspected murder. He had the knife on him, and he was wearing muddy boots that matched the footprints that was found near Horace's body. Jesse, however, was cool and calm and stated, quote, "You can't prove anything," end quote. The police brought him to the morgue to see Horace's body, thinking if he was innocent, he wouldn't mind going in. Jesse was hesitant, but he went. While he was there, he said, quote, "I am sorry I did it. Please don't tell my mother," end quote, and he wept. While awaiting trial, Mrs. Pomeroy decided to move and sell her store. Workmen ended up finding the remains of Katie Curran, now foul with the odor of decay. She was buried under the basement earthly floor. Katie's head was severed from her body, and her genitalia had almost been completely dissected from her body. When police asked Jesse why he killed the girl, Jesse gave a blank look and said, quote, "I don't know. I wanted to see how she would act," end quote. The penalty in Massachusetts for murder was death by hanging, but the state had never executed anybody as young as 14-year-old Jesse Pomeroy. So the case of the Commonwealth versus Pomeroy was heard in the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court, Suffolk County, Boston, on December 9th and December 10th, 1874. At the trial, the Attorney General argued for the verdict of guilty in the murder of first degree. In his closing arguments, however, he urged an alternative charge of murder with extreme atrocity, which according to Massachusetts law is the first-degree murder, but differs from the original charge in the requirement of premeditation. Jesse was pronounced guilty on December 10th, 1874, with the jury's recommendation of mercy on account of the prisoner's youth. He was given a lifelong sentence in solitary confinement. Jesse spent 41 years in solitary before getting some contact with other inmates. On September 9th, 1932, Jesse Pomeroy died at the age of 52. That is the case of Jesse Pomeroy. Thank you for sticking around for another episode of Danny After Dark. Do you have any questions or comments about this case? Leave it down below. Let's be interactive. Do you have a suggestion for a case that you'd like me to cover? Leave it down below. You may see it featured in an upcoming episode. Until next time, remember, we don't live in darkness. Darkness lives in us.